The Laundering, Volume 2, Case 34, The Apology, a self-review aimed at the court. Open the case.
A jury heard the evidence and acquitted Umar Zamir of murder. The trial judge wrote her reasons, which were sharply critical of some police testimony. Both of those are final acts of a court. What happened next ran the other way. A police-led review examined the officers' conduct at trial and cleared them. The police chief called them exonerated. And the premier and the police union used that clearance to demand that the judge apologize. This case is about the direction of that demand. Accountability is supposed to point from power toward the court that checks it. Here, a self-clearing review was turned into a counter-verdict and aimed back at the bench, the arrow reversed and dressed as vindication.
Isn't the honest thing to take a side on the trial?
This case can't and doesn't. The acquittal is settled and the officers were cleared. Strip the partisanship away and a familiar grammar appears, the one from Case 20, the echo. The verification step becomes the laundering step. A review whose ostensible job is to check conduct is converted into a producer of conclusions. And the conclusion is then used not to close the matter, but to reopen a courts, pointing the machinery of accountability backward at the institution that is supposed to do the checking.
And the premises?
4. 1. Reviewing officers' conduct can be legitimate. People criticized in a judge's reasons have a real interest in their reputation, and a death, in this case, Constable Northrop's, is a genuine loss that deserves seriousness. Grant it in full. 2. A jury acquitted and a judge issued reasons. Those are final acts of a court, alterable only on appeal. 3. A police-led review that clears the officers is not an appellate court. Clearing the officers and overruling the judge are different things. 4. The spine. Presenting the review as exoneration and using it to demand the judge apologize treats a self-assessment as if it were a higher verdict and points it back at the court. The reversal of accountability's direction is the laundering.
Hold the facts plainly.
In the summer of 2021, Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrop, a plainclothes Toronto officer, was struck and killed in an underground parking garage downtown. Umar Zamir was charged with first-degree murder. In 2024, after a trial, a jury acquitted him. The presiding judge, Justice Anne Malloy, delivered reasons that were, in places, severely critical of the police evidence, including her assessment that collusion among the officers' accounts was, in her view, likely.
How does the case hold those facts?
2 things are true at once, and we keep both. A man was acquitted by a jury of his peers and is, in law, innocent, fully and without an asterisk. And an officer died, and his family and colleagues carry that. Neither of those facts is the subject here, and neither is in dispute. What matters structurally is only their status. A verdict and a set of judicial reasons are the considered output of a court, and in our system, they are reviewed in one place only, a higher court on appeal, not by the people they went against.
Then came the review.
In March 2026, an Ontario provincial police investigation into the officer's trial testimony concluded there was no collusion, no perjury, and no criminal offence, notwithstanding the trial judge's contrary assessment in her reasons. On its own terms, that is unremarkable. A criminal standard is high, and not finding evidence of a crime is different from finding none of the conduct a judge described. The Toronto police chief, however, announced that the officers had been exonerated.
What's hidden in that word?
2 slides. First, a review by police of police is described in the language of a court. Exoneration, a word that belongs to verdicts. Second, the finding, no evidence of a crime, is inflated into the much larger claim it cannot bear, that the judge's reasons were wrong. Commentators noted the review's own gaps. A former director of the police watchdog called it curious for the limited involvement of the reconstruction expertise the trial had turned on. But the structural point doesn't even require doubting the review. Even a flawless internal clearance is not an appellate ruling and cannot convert "we found no crime" into "the court erred."
Where does the reversal become visible?
In a single demand. After the clearance, the president of the Toronto Police Union and then the Premier of Ontario called on Justice Malloy to apologize to the officers for her comments at trial. That is the tell, complete in one word. A sitting judge, having delivered the reasons that are her constitutional function, was asked to publicly recant them under pressure from the executive and the police, the two kinds of power a court exists to be independent of. The arrow has fully turned. The body that judges is told to answer to the bodies it judged.
And the anchor?
It is not a defendant's lawyer, it is the head of the court. The Chief Justice of the Ontario Superior Court responded that decisions made at the end of a trial are final and that it would be inappropriate and unethical for judges to succumb to outside pressure to modify or qualify their decisions or reasons. Legal scholars said the same. That is what makes this structural and not a quarrel about one case. The demand asks a judge to do the one thing the independence of the judiciary forbids.
Build the other side at its strongest.
Parts of it are real, and a person harmed by this deserves it stated. Being named in a judge's reasons as likely to have colluded is a grave thing to carry, especially for officers, a separate review, then cleared of any crime. Their reputational stake is genuine, not manufactured. An acquittal is not a finding that police lied, and people are entitled to say so. Reviewing the officer's conduct was a legitimate exercise, and beneath all of it is a death. Constable Northrop's, and colleagues and family for whom the years since have been their own ordeal. None of that is dismissed here.
And yet?
Grant all of it. The narrow claim survives because none of it licenses the move. The cleared officers may answer the judge's reasons, in the proper forum, an appeal, or in measured public speech of their own. What does not follow is a demand, backed by the Premier and the police, that the judge recant. The remedy for reasons you believe are wrong is to have a higher court review them, where evidence can be tested and the judge's independence is preserved. Substituting an internal clearance and a political demand for that process is not vindication. It is the appeal you skip because you would lose it. Run instead as pressure on the one official who cannot answer back without surrendering the thing that makes her a judge.
2 readings are loud, and the series carries both
as named lenses, adopting neither. The first, voiced by the Premier, the police union, and the chief. The officers were exonerated, the judge's collusion comments wronged them, and an apology is owed. The second, voiced by Zamir's lawyer and echoed by the Chief Justice and legal scholars. This is a chilling attack against the judiciary and the administration of justice, a Trumpian pressure on judicial independence, and the apology owed, if any, runs the other way. This case does not arbitrate the trial between them. It is not equipped to, and it does not need to.
So what does it fix?
The direction. You can believe the officers were badly treated by the reasons and still see that the cure on offer, a self-review, spent as a demand that the judge recant, runs accountability backward. The defendant's lawyer called for a public inquiry. Whatever one thinks of that, an inquiry at least points the arrow the usual way, at the exercise of state power rather than at the court. The series' only insistence is that the arrow keep its direction. Reviews of power are answerable to courts, not the reverse.
Name it.
A court did its work. A jury acquitted. A judge reasoned. A body adjacent to the parties reviewed the parties and cleared them. That clearance was then renamed exoneration, inflated from no crime found into the court was wrong, and spent as a demand that the judge apologize, with the executive's weight behind it. Each step can be defended on its own. The integration is a self-assessment wearing the robes of a verdict, pointed at the one institution it has no power to overrule. That is Case 20's echo made constitutional, the verification step turned into the laundering step and aimed at the bench.
And the reading test?
When you next see a review used to ask a court to take something back, do the one thing the word exoneration is built to skip. Trace the arrow. Ask who reviewed whom, which body the law makes final, and in which direction the apology is being demanded. If power is answering to the court, that is accountability. If the court is being told to answer to power, you are not watching an exoneration. You are watching the arrow turned around, and a verdict quietly put up for renegotiation. As the Chief Justice put it, succumbing to that pressure would be inappropriate and unethical, not because judges are above criticism, but because a judiciary that recants on demand is no longer independent of the people doing the demanding.